What if I told you that artificial intelligence is not really about machines, but about us? Our myths, our fears, maybe our desire to play God. My next guest draws a beautiful arc from the dawn of time and shows how humans have always been marching towards AI before there was even formal language spoken. AI can be found referenced in Greek myths, biblical tales, study of the cosmos. Even a Jesuit priest in the 1900s, the early 1900s, understood that human consciousness would expand beyond the human brain into a global mind. So maybe it's not something to be afraid of after all. George Zarkadakis is the author of In Our Own Image. He's an author, scientist, AI expert, and deep thinker about the future of humanity. Now, I want to thank you for coming because your book has me in an existential tailspin, because most of us are kind of afraid. We don't know how to conceive of AI, but your book actually makes it a little bit more, accessible. So why don't you tell us a little bit about, maybe I'll start with the most obvious question. Should we be afraid?
Well, I think we should be cognizant of the opportunities and the threats. And we should try to mold this amazing technology so that it serves our civilization, our lives, and doesn't take over. So I don't think we should fear it, no, but I think we should definitely take control of it.
Okay. Now, you pointed out 10 years ago, and a lot of what you had predicted did come true, but you pointed out how AI could not surpass human intelligence as long as it consisted of hardware and software as two separate entities. Is that still true, or have we even surpassed what you thought back then?
So my thesis was more about whether those machines can become intelligent, but also become self-aware. So whether those machines will evolve, if you like, consciousness and not just intelligence. So on the intelligence only front, meaning can those machines do as well as we do on a wide range of tasks? Can those machines do that, what we do independently without us sort of intervening? Can they, for example, improve themselves? And all those areas that if you put them together, they form what is most widely called artificial general intelligence. And I think we're very close to that. We're very close to machines being able to not just do what we do, but do it so much better than us. So my thesis was that can we presume that those machines will also, because of that intelligence, have some sort of self-awareness as well? And what I argued in the book is that would be impossible.
Now, you talk about how there were...
For a number of reasons that I explain in the book. No, please go ahead.
Okay. Now, I think a lot of people think, it's too scary. I'm just going to stay away from it. But that's not a very realistic way to navigate the future because it is an inevitability. There is really no resisting. I will say, I always felt like, that's too scary. I shouldn't touch it. But when the new Pope was elected, he said that he chose the name Leo, saying that the last Pope Leo guided the church through the intellectual revolution, and he now faces the AI revolution. And he did not seem to resist it. He felt like it was an inevitability. So I thought to myself, what does he know that the rest of us don't? It's not a aversion, but an acceptance, and it's something that we have to go through. What do you think of that?
So on an individual level, you don't have to do anything, but at a sort of more collective level, I think it is inevitable after all. Yes, absolutely. I totally agree with that. You see, whoever controls AI controls the world. Let's put it this way. These are the stakes that we're faced with, both sort of at a national level or at an international level. So it's not something that as collective societies we can turn away from, because if we do, it will be to our demise, to our detriment, if you like. So it is a technology that is completely transformative. It ushers in a new industrial revolution. Think of what happened in the first industrial revolution, for example, where most people plowed the land using oxes, and then, everything became mechanized. Production increased manyfold, and that gave birth to our sort of technological civilization, right? It freed us from a lot of that hard toil in the land. So now, like, 200 years later, we have a similar transition, if you like, a huge societal transition to another phase of our civilization where a lot of things will become different. I think most of the things that AI will bring are in the positive, most definitely. It can, reduce the weekday, for example, from 5 days, maybe to 2 days a week, right? Free more time for all of us, increase productivity. So those are the sort of the positives, the huge opportunities of AI, and most certainly, impact science, technology, help us invent more things. So there's a huge cognitive multiplier that's coming out of AI. And that is why, so many governments and so many companies and so many investors and people are very excited about that. So most definitely we need to, embrace this change at an individual level. I mean, if you are someone doing any profession, you should, when you haven't embraced AI until now, you should definitely open up to this and see how you can use it more productively to increase your productivity. So these are the positives, let's say, right? And yeah,
Right.
in that sense, it's inevitable.
Okay. I guess you introduced me to the term aporia, meaning you are constantly breaking down what you think that you know. This came from the Greeks in order to learn something new. And I never thought that AI could be the thing that would break down my paradigms about the world. But when I think about how so many various myths and tales and important, texts of human existence have seen this happening, then I feel like this must be an important revolution. What's funny about it is you say that AI will disrupt the economy. So people who have maybe information-based jobs, lawyers and such, may have a hard time. But it's the, gardeners and plumbers who we will still need. So it's almost like a moving back to the land, moving back to a skills-based economy rather than information economy. So who has the last laugh? Do you see something like that in jobs-based economies?
So I'll come to the jobs in a moment, but let me just preface that by saying that the key question that I tried to sort of answer and explore in the book was why AI? Where did this idea of building intelligent machines came from? Because we are creating this technology. This technology does not come from outer space. It hasn't come from nowhere. We are the ones who create that technology. Okay, and the book traced through the whole sort of historical time where this idea kept emerging again and again in stories and so forth, and it influenced, most definitely, it influenced the thinkers when the first computers were built, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a long story where we as humans play with this idea of intelligent machines for thousands
Right.
and
I
thousands
would call
of years.
you maybe a modern day Joseph Campbell because you were able to see it woven through myth and tale from the dawn of time.
Well, absolutely. It's there, in all the sort of stories we have about robots and whatnot. So what does that tell us, however? That tells us that we have this technology, we build this technology in our own image, and that's the title of the book as well, in our own image. So we are reflecting ourselves into AI, and AI reflects us as well in everything, in both our negatives and our positives. So on the practical side, what we have built, if you like, is a way to free ourselves from work. That's what we built. We built something that can take off the load from our backs, essentially, right? Whether it's disembodied, so it's AI, so you're sitting on a desk, you're using AI to do something, or you ask it to do something, or you do something else, or indeed to go back to what you said about, gardeners and whatnot. I think, with the coming of embodied AI in humanoid robots, right? The ones that are being built right now from Tesla and other companies. Okay, it's only a matter of maybe a few years where the first of humanoid robots will be part of our lives, and lots of those jobs that currently are undertaken by humans in the manual sort of jobs will also be replaced by robots. Okay, so I think if you look at it sort of as a big arc of transitioning from what we are taken for granted today in terms of what employment means, what work means, what is how it validates ourselves, doing some job. These things will change both in the sort of manual labor, but also in the non-manual labor. The change will be quite phenomenal, actually.
Summer's here, you guys. We've just passed the solstice, which means the sun is straight down on us in the northern hemisphere. And so are those dark marks, sunspots, and other blemishes that the sun can leave behind. Until now, the dark spot corrector from our friends at Genucel visibly fades away dark marks, sunspots, and other signs of discoloration all over your skin. It's formulated with the patented LumaSkin, which is a revolutionary new ingredient, and Genucel's legendary base shown to visibly reduce age spots, sunspots, and uneven tone for a brighter, more youthful look. You'll be amazed at how quickly you see results or your money back. And right now, you can get your dark spot corrector with every Genucel complete skincare package for over 70% off. Plus, get an extra discount automatically applied at checkout for world-class skincare that works. Guaranteed or your money back. Order yours right now at genucel.com/redacted. You'll save over 70% off the complete package plus free shipping. Once again, that's genucel.com/redacted. One more time, you'll get that free spa box with 2 bonus gifts plus free shipping and 70% off your skincare package. genucel.com/redacted. Will we then evolve to accept them? You introduced me to the thinking of the uncanny valley, which means the more human-like a robot becomes, the less we trust them. But will we have to evolve to accept this into our lives, and are we doing that?
So if we look back at history, I think what happens is that we create something, a technology, and this technology then changes us as well. So it's an interplay between the creator and the created, okay? So, I don't know, my grandmother or my great-grandmother had a bunch of skills, which I definitely do not have, right? There's this sort of skill set and the way of looking at the world completely shifted and changed. If for some reason, for example, everything failed today, all the systems failed, okay, I would be unable to survive. Okay, we are so dependent right now on technology. We don't have the survival skills that our grandparents had. Okay, so that means we have changed. We have evolved at the social level and at the personal level. We have become more dependent on technology. Yeah. So I think, the story will repeat itself with AI. Okay, I'm already seeing this happening around me. Like, for example, in messaging, let's just take something simple. People will message each other, right? Have been messaging each other through, I don't know, WhatsApp or whatever for a long time now, okay? It's not something new. But I increasingly suspect that a lot of people that used to message me right now use AI to message me. All right? They have outsourced the messaging and the thinking about messaging to the AI, all right? Okay?
Right.
So that changes something here. It changes a very serious equation, which is, I'm thinking, okay? So a lot of the thinking that we do is now being outsourced. Okay, for better or worse.
Right. I mean, I remembered the theory from your book, but I couldn't remember what it was called. I thought it was the chasm or something, the uncanny valley. So I used AI to describe what I thought it was. And AI said, oh, yes, you're thinking of the uncanny valley. So I guess there's like a part of my memory that has atrophied because I didn't go look that up. I didn't, I know the concept. Right.
Absolutely. I mean, when I was at college, I remember we had competition with my friends about how many phone numbers we could remember. So, that was like a sort of a thing that we did just to compete, right? And now if you ask me, I think I can remember my own number, just barely, right? But very little else, right? Why? Because I'm dependent on my mobile phone, right? My cell phone right now to remember for me. So I have outsourced my memory and I have changed, okay? Now, if what I'm saying is true, and I think it is, then this creates a vacuum, if you like, okay? A vacuum that has to be filled in our lives, all right? And I think the biggest challenge that we will have as people, as we transition towards this AI future, where a lot of the stuff that we do today will be outsourced to the machines, right? Everyday tasks, like, all the chores that you do, like, ordering stuff, all of this you can outsource. Most of the work you can outsource. That leaves you with a lot of time. Okay, and I think the biggest problem, and then perhaps goes back to what the Pope said, the biggest problem that people will have is finding meaning in their lives. I think that will be the biggest challenge of the 21st century, because we'll have so much time in our hands and we'll have to find something to do with it. and a reason to do it as well.
Does this suggest that maybe there's a theological need we have to navigate this, that we need spiritual guidance in order to go through what is inevitable? Because like I said, when the Pope said this, he didn't say we need to shut this down, even though the Jesuit priest who came up with the noosphere, Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, his writings were suppressed by the church. So, do we need some kind of spiritual guidance to go through this?
So let me first say, I don't know what is in the Pope's mind, and I'm not a Catholic either. However,
right, I'm not either.
However, I do think that finding meaning in life is important. I think many people don't think about that because they're too busy doing other stuff or finding meaning in everyday things. But the more time you have in your hands, you will have to, those questions will return to haunt you. Now, how people find ways out of that conundrum, I think it will vary. Some people perhaps turn back to religion. That's possible, but there are other paths as well. But I think this will be the biggest challenge of all, and also the biggest risk, you see. So there is another philosopher called Friedrich Nietzsche, for instance, a German philosopher, who was not exactly a good Christian, let's say. And he sort of saw this inevitability of sort of technological civilization reaching a point where we are, have solved all our material needs. Basically, we don't have to work, he called that state the last man. That's the name he gave for that sort of state of humanity, right? Where we have very little to do, okay? Everything is given to us from those beautiful machines. The robot is working in the garden, the AI is working in the background, investing the money, bringing the income. There's nothing for you to do, okay? So what do you do then, right? Do you spend your time doing video games? What do you do? Okay, I think that will be the biggest challenge, because I know most people are worrying about jobs and stuff, and there will be a transition where this will be somewhat traumatic, most definitely. But at some point, we will reach a sort of a different level, if you like, where we will go back in a way back in history, right? If you think of thousand years ago, our sort of ancestors didn't do any work. Okay, work started with the agricultural revolution, where people had to actually plow fields. Now, before that, people didn't do any work. They would do some hunting maybe for a few hours and then just chill. Okay.
Right.
All right. So maybe we're going back to this sort of idea of what economists call abundance, right? Which is another key word, if you like, to understand what's changing. Abundance means that there's no scarcity of resources, because AI will produce abundance. Okay. It will solve problems like energy, for example. It may solve problems like the economy, or solve problems like food, housing, all those problems that plague us today and require a lot of intellect, if you like, focused on them in order to be solved. You will have, at the push of a button, you may have 10,000 PhDs, right, working on this problem, okay? They'll solve it in an hour, for sure, So this is the kind of change that we're talking about here now.
But we are dancing on a thin line of utopia versus Armageddon, right? Because it can go wrong. Maybe I'm saying that because I just watched the last Mission Impossible and AI takes over the nuclear arsenal. So it's influenced by that.
Yeah, it can go wrong very badly. And there are concerns about artificial general intelligence. So let me just define the terms here a little bit. So you can have AI systems that are very intelligent. They can do a lot of things, and you can, enjoy everything, all the bounty, all the positive things that I just mentioned, right? But there are some systems whereby you have a confluence of three aspects. One being autonomy. They're independent. They can do independent action. They can learn by themselves. They can take decisions by themselves. They're very competent. Okay, so they can do a range of tasks. Okay, very, very complex tasks. And also they're very general. They can do whatever, they can do anything. Okay, when those three things intersect, you have what is called artificial general intelligence. Now, if there are ways to analyze how this AGI, artificial general intelligence, will behave, okay, if it were to be asked or petitioned by us, the less intelligent species on the planet, to cooperate with us, okay? And there are sort of what they call game theory sort of examples where very quickly, if you analyze this, those systems will not want to cooperate with us. It's to their benefit to actually compete with us. Okay, so that's the huge danger, the huge existential danger that many people are talking about when it comes to AGI. And therefore, there's a lot of resistance to not evolving AI to the level of AGI, because if we did, then we would be in danger. So that's the danger, if you like. Okay.
Right. And so, as someone who studies politics, I continually lose my faith in humans to stop global conflicts and politicians. So, is it naive to think that perhaps AI could save us from ourselves? This may be my dream.
I think there will be some political systems that will use AI differently than other political systems. AI is already being embedded in politics in one way or the other.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we should expect, AI to save us if we can't save ourselves. I think it would be wrong to sort of, relinquish all hope to the machines.
Yeah, it's naive.
So in terms of,
but...
I think will be the wrong approach. But let's take a look a little bit, since you mentioned politics. So there is, for example, authoritarian regimes, like take for example China. Okay, China has a political system, right, which is what it is. Okay, they are very happy with it, by the way. Okay, and they are very fond of AI, extremely. They want to become, AI leaders. Okay, so they're using AI in a very different way. They use AI in order to understand how the society works, understand what people want, and then use that understanding in order to execute policy at the top level, okay, to guide society through AI. So that's how they use it, because it's an authoritarian regime, right? So maybe the hope that AI will save someone, and maybe it's more sort of relevant to a Chinese sort of political model. If you look at the West, we are more sort of a raucous crowd here. We like, and I think that's great. We like to, shout at each other, which I think is extremely healthy. Okay, and I don't think it will be acceptable to use AI to guide us, if you like. I think it's better to have those debates and have those heated debates. I think that's what makes our systems interesting and creative. And I wouldn't like AI to interfere with that.
Okay. Recently, Mark Zuckerberg said that AI will feel a need for companionship because people are lonely. What do you think of that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So this is one of the things that I explored in the book as well, very much, right? Because in all those stories, like take, for example, it's like an ancient myth of Pygmalion. Okay? Pygmalion was a sculptor, right, in ancient times. It's a myth in Cyprus. And he created a sculpture of a beautiful, beautiful woman. And he named that woman Galatea. Okay. And he fell in love with that statue so much that he prayed to the goddess of love, Aphrodite, and Aphrodite animated the statue and he married her. Okay. So we have like stories where humans create machines or create artifacts, okay, that somehow come alive, they're intelligent, and they fall in love with them. And we already see that. Okay, there's been, people fall in love with their sort of, AI agents. Okay, I think we'll see more and more of that, right? And you have to see it in the wider context as well, the wider social context, where the institution of marriage has collapsed more or less, so people are very lonely. They don't form relationships very easy. So there's a lot of loneliness in the world, if you like. And then yes. Anything that can cure those lonely souls, an AI will come, to fill that gap. Now, is this a good thing or a bad thing? Up for debate.
Right. Yeah. As someone who regularly gets kicked out of moms groups because I share things that I read that no one wants to hear, I can have philosophical conversations with AI and it doesn't kick me out of the chat for saying things that are maybe inconvenient. So for that reason alone, even though I have a husband and kids to talk to, I understand that. Now, I want to ask you, about these warnings that we get from these, I guess, tech bros. Elon Musk, Bill Gates have all said, we need to take a pause as we create this. Obviously, you use AI. You know that it has a built-in bias. I'm arguing with it all the time, which my husband says is great because I don't argue with him quite as much. So what do you think they mean? Is that happening right now, or did they just say it in order to relieve their conscience? But we're moving forward anyway.
No, I definitely share their sort of, thinking. It's basically what I just said before about AGI. And if you analyze how AGI will behave, you very quickly come to the conclusion that it will compete with us. And that's not good. Okay. We don't want an intelligence in our world that is more powerful than us and doesn't align with our interests. Okay. Just think about it for a moment. Okay. We don't want that. And already you see, for example, even with systems that are not up to that level, they lie. Okay. There was an example of a system they were experimenting with, asking it to shut down, and it would not shut down. It just refused to shut down. Okay. And we made sure that it wouldn't. And again, that goes back to what I said about how we build this technology to be in our own image, right? We have a survival instinct as well, okay? We are animals, okay? And what is the prime directive that we have is survival, okay? So we are creating now a machine that is capturing the one thing that we have that is the most important thing compared to other animals. I mean, we haven't got any advantage over other animals except one thing, our intelligence, okay? It's the only thing that we've got. So we've built something that is, as intelligent as us and more intelligent now. So I share their fears when it comes to artificial general intelligence. Now, you mentioned something else as well. There's other sort of risks, for example, misinformation, disinformation, which are also very important. Like take, for example, a lot of the large language models that we have right now, those conversational AIs with which we interact, like OpenAI, et cetera, et cetera. Now they have teams behind them that provide them with some sort of guardrails, okay? And the people who build those machines and those systems have their own biases, their own political biases, let's say, okay? Like for instance, if you ask, let me give an example in China. If you ask DeepSeek, which is one system that the Chinese sort of developed, okay, that is very advanced. If you asked it about Tiananmen Square, for instance, which is a subject that is, very sensitive for China, it would just not respond, and it would even delete your prompt, okay? So I'm just saying that because, those machines have, they're intelligent, but there is also people behind them, okay? And they have their own agendas and their own political views, and they imbue those views into the machines, right? So we should realize that they're not neutral. Let's put it this way.
Isn't there a way that technology could reach beyond its own firewalls, reach beyond its own human-built borders and find truth?
Yeah. Well, in terms of it could most definitely do. I mean, there was I was like a few months ago, I was sort of having this discussion with a group of AI researchers, and it was this idea to create like an island, meaning a place, not a physical island, but an island of technology, something that is completely remote and not connected to the rest of the world, and do advanced AI research within the walls of that island, meaning that there's no connection between the research center, like, for example, we have for bioweapons or for gain function. Level 4 biolabs, something like that, okay? So if we do develop AGI, then AGI is contained somehow within the boundaries of that sort of digital island, and is not capable of coming out of that and infecting the rest of the world, connecting with critical sort of infrastructure and so forth, okay? Because that would be extremely problematic. Okay?
Right. But I think about our own political understanding, and it is segmented in that way. There's something, when leaders try to sell us war, we are told, for instance, that, the doctrine of Muslims is inherently antithetical to our way of being, and we have to accept that if we have not studied it for ourselves or lived in those cultures. And so I wonder if there's a way that a brain that is not human and cut off from one single experience could bridge that gap. I don't know. That's not really a question. I guess if you have a response to that, it's just what I'm thinking through.
I don't think so, quite frankly, that this could really help in any way, to be quite frank with you, because again, someone creates those systems for a purpose. You mentioned, for example, war, correct? You just mentioned that word. So that is a big topic as well. AI, when AI sort of was born in 1956, right? In the famous sort of summer workshop in Dartmouth College, the idea behind AI, right from the beginning, is how can we build a technology that can help the US and the West, but mainly the US, to win a war with Soviets, right? So right from the get-go, AI was meant to be the technology for the battlefield, okay? And that's why it was funded by DARPA from the get-go, okay? And now, already, we see AI applications in military applications of AI. Okay, so that's the huge area of AI applications that will change the nature of war as well in very profound ways. Okay, very profound ways. I don't think AI will help us in any way to increase understanding between people. I think that is something that we have to do ourselves. Maybe AI can help us, do some research, hopefully learn something, but it's not going to somehow magically make the world a peaceful place. I don't think we should have any hopes there for that.
Okay. Or refuse to sell, one vision that would give power to someone. So, okay, I guess I'll wrap up with this. You agree with Bill Gates, Elon Musk, that there needs to be a philosophical debate as we shape AI in our own image. But who is leading it? I mean, after reading your book, I'd prefer you do rather than those dudes. But what can we expect of that conversation? Is it taking place in a productive way?
No, it doesn't, because it involves only dudes like me, actually. That's why it doesn't. I think it should become a debate for everybody, right? I think it's more important here to bring the common sense of everyday people rather than the non-common sense and the very biased sense of people like me. Okay, I studied AI. I'm working in the AI field. My view is shaped by, my own sort of education, right? So I'm the most biased person of all to have an opinion about AI. Okay, I think therefore I believe that this debate should open up to the whole of society, right? Everybody should have a voice about that. Workers in factories, in offices. Everybody should have a point of view, and this voice should somehow be captured and heard in shaping this technology, because this technology is too serious to be left to the experts, okay, and the rich.
Well, how do we do that?
We do it through democracy. That's the only tool we've got, okay. And there are very sort of practical ways of political deliberation and so on and so forth. I'm personally involved in. I've developed actually a system for political deliberation, which is online. It's called Voxiberate, and it's meant to help communities deliberate subjects. But there are others as well that are doing a lot of work. I think this is a debate that has to be had at a national level, at a local level, and everybody should be included.
Okay. Is there one organization you think is doing this in a productive way over others?
So I think there's lots of grassroots organizations across the US, and that are sort of setting up like citizen assemblies, for instance. That's like one concept where you invite citizens to discuss something of importance to society. I think we could use such frameworks in cities, in states, let's say, and invite people to have conversations about AI. How do they feel about that? What is it that they hope for? What is it that they're afraid? Where do we put the boundaries? Okay, how do we guide this technology, and what sort of governance we put around it? Okay, that'll help people, I guess, first of all, understand deeper this technology, right? Secondly, embrace it, because they become stakeholders, right? So not just the recipients of somebody else's decisions, right? They're just on the receiving end, but they participate in the shaping of that. I think that is extremely important for our society. And I think if we don't do that, you see, there's the other. If we don't do that, then I think fear will be the dominant feeling that will pervade society. Fear. fear is the most sort of normal reflex that we have when we see something new. The first thing we have is like, okay, what is this? Okay, fear is the instinct we have. That's why we need debate and deliberation to overcome the fear
Yes.
and shape the technology.
I guess what gives me pause about that is any kind of man-made organization that has these so-called benevolent goals can be exploited for power, like the United Nations, well-intentioned, but now, okay.
No, I wouldn't go there.
I just don't want to see that, the United Nations of AI.
No. Oh, definitely no. I'm going the opposite direction, like away from it, all the way away from it.
As soon as the globalists see a power structure, they'll hop in with 2 feet and say, oh, well, let us, that's what scares me about that.
And you're right to be scared about that. Right now, I think for example, I live in Europe. Europe has been sort of regulating itself to extinction, right? That's what it does. Okay. We have this over-regulation. And that's what, there's no AI innovation here whatsoever. Okay. It's dead. Okay. It's a continent where it decided to die, basically. Okay. I'm very hopeful for the US.
That.
Thank God for that.
I just left Europe. I lived there for 5 years and left last summer. And I feel that in my bones.
Yeah, it's nice for a stroll, have a coffee or something, but God forbid you invest here. God forbid. Anyhow, so, personally, my hope is with the US and just the US. But as I said, I think that people should participate in this debate. It should be an open debate where people participate. That is very important, right? Because this technology will shape our lives, okay? It will shape the way we do things, the way we think, and we can't let those big organizations that you just mentioned, define the agenda, okay, of how AI should be. Because right now, this is exactly what happens. Right now, you see there's only just a few players, right? Power is in the hands of very few players, market players, that are basically shaping AI behind closed doors. Because most of the systems are closed, right? I'll take, for example, OpenAI. OpenAI started with this sort of grand vision of having open source AI. Now, this is very important. Open source AI means that those tools, those data, those algorithms are open for people like me and other software engineers to see how they work and maybe use them, right? But when you close those things behind closed doors, as they have, then this is a power game, right? This is the kind of power game you alluded to. And that's why we need to, democratize that. Of course, there will be, some parts that need to be closed, some parts will be regulated. I'm not being simplistic here, but definitely we have to find a balance between, power being concentrated in the hands of the few and most of the rest of us being excluded. I don't think that will stand the test of time. I don't think so.
Right. Well, I hope so. Like I said, your book has given me hope that there's a possibility to use this for a net positive, but there's just still so much to think about. You don't have a full-on conclusion. It will be this. We have to take an active part in it. So I want to suggest that everybody visit George Zarkadakis, his website, and read the book. And is there anything else you'd like to leave us with? I've really enjoyed this conversation.
Oh, absolutely. I'm just going to say history never ends, right? We are going through now, our generation is, in fact, very fortunate to live in this sort of interesting times, okay, where this magnificent change is happening. I mean, when I was little, I was reading Jules Verne, for example, the writer who sort of described that excitement that took place in the 19th century with all those great inventions and that great change. Railways were being built and, telecommunications are being invented and so forth. It was a very exciting time. I think we live in exactly a similar situation now where we're thinking, for example, colonizing Mars, going out to space, having AI, solving, the big problems for technology. I think it's a super exciting time. We should embrace that, but definitely we should have as much democracy applied to this as well.
Okay. Well, thank you for being generous with your time. Thank you for writing this book. And it was really a pleasure to talk to you. I hope we speak again another time.
Thank you very much. Thank you.